there, everybody, and welcome to the Alzheimer Society of Simcoe County's Monday at noon Facebook Live broadcast. If you're watching out there today, if you want to let me know, maybe let me know where you're watching from, so I feel like I'm talking to people out there instead of just at the iPad sitting here in my home office. Welcome to our first Facebook Live of 2021. I do hope that you had a restful holiday season. I know it's been certainly a different one than we are normally used to, but I hope that you found some ways to connect with your family and had some well-deserved end to our 2020 year. 2021 is off to a challenging start. I can only hope that it's going to get better from here. So our first Facebook Live of the year, the Alzheimer Society always starts the new year with our Awareness Month campaign. So January is Alzheimer's Awareness Month. And so around this time every year, I've been with the Society 16 years, we get geared up to really go out into the community and out in news and let people know about Alzheimer's disease and focus on the Awareness Month campaign for the year. And so I thought we would start 2021, our first Facebook Live broadcast, by talking about Alzheimer's Awareness Month. In the last number of years, our Awareness Month campaigns have really been focused on dispelling the stigma of Alzheimer's disease. And so I thought I would talk a little bit about stigma today. Some of our awareness campaigns in previous years, the most recent one was called I Live with Dementia, Let Me Help You Understand. And there is a website that you can go on to look at all the personal stories that were part of that campaign. And the website is ilivewithdementia.ca. So that's ilivewithdementia.ca. And I do encourage you to go onto that website. There's lots of really great stories from people living with dementia as well as from their partners in care, so family members and friends. And I think that's really the first step to dispelling stigma, is to personalize this disease and understand what it's like to live with Alzheimer's disease or another type of dementia. So I do encourage you, if you're looking for ways that you could help dispel the stigma, is to first go on and really look at those personal stories. And this year, the Alzheimer Awareness Campaign is focused on a specific story, and it's called Alicia's Story. I know here on our Facebook page, we do have a link to Alicia's story. There's a series of 4 videos that talk about her story from her perspective and her family's perspective. And it really is a wonderful videos that they put together. So I do encourage you to go and watch those as well. So as I go through today, if you have any questions or comments, if you want to put them down in the chat, there's a bit of delay from my end to see your questions, but I will keep an eye out for them on my screen, and if I see a question, I'll address it here in the live broadcast. So, okay, let me just talk a little bit about stigma. Alzheimer's disease, unfortunately, still has a lot of stigma attached to the word. When I first started at the Alzheimer's Society 16 years ago, I noticed that usually people came to the society for support when they couldn't go any longer. So something happened in their journey and they really needed help. So they tried for a long time to manage on their own, not accessing supports, and it was only when things kind of came to a head that they would then reach out. And I'm happy to say that over the years, the Society and other organizations that support people living with dementia and people living with dementia themselves have done a lot of advocacy work to dispel that stigma. And what I'm seeing now is that more and more people are coming to the Alzheimer's Society at the very beginning of their journey. So maybe they've just gotten a diagnosis, or they haven't even gotten a diagnosis yet, but they're having some changes and it's being investigated, and they're coming to the society early to say, well, what can I do about this? Because the whole goal of it is to live well with these changes. So when I'm talking about a person living with dementia, which is the preferred term that we use, I'm talking about somebody who's living with a disease, a neurodegenerative disease that's causing changes. And these changes are impacting their life. And so what they're seeing is that their quality of life can start to decrease. But our goal is to help people live the best possible quality of life for as long as possible. And when there's stigma attached to that diagnosis, then people are hesitant to come and access support. They're hesitant to tell their friends and neighbors what they're going through. They spend a lot of time and energy trying to be okay and put up appearances and to keep things private because they don't want other people to know. And they're missing out on the opportunity to really access the kinds of supports that are out there that can help them live full, meaningful lives. And so if we can help to dispel the stigma around this disease, then people will feel more comfortable to reach out and start accessing these supports. And so that is really our goal, is to help reduce that stigma, and it comes with education and awareness. So with these Awareness Month campaigns over the past few years, the Society has really focused on educating the public about dementia, and that a diagnosis of dementia does not mean that somebody is automatically at the end stage of the disease, that they have a full life to live, and with certain supports we can help them live that life and have a good quality of life. And the more that people access supports early, the better able they are to manage the changes that come with this disease. And so when I'm thinking of the Awareness Month campaigns, and I'm sorry, I'm looking at my notes here, and I'm looking at some of the stories from last year's campaign, which was I live with dementia, let me help you understand. Some of the stories on there from people living with dementia, they've talked about some of the challenges that they experienced because of stigma, and some things that they were experiencing, just those everyday occurrences. For example, there's one gentleman named Roger from Alberta, and he's one of the ambassadors in Alberta. He is living with early onset Alzheimer's disease, and he was sharing that what really impacts him living well with dementia is the way that we make jokes about this disease, how we have lots of Alzheimer jokes or jokes about our memory, and that for him, as a person living with dementia, he finds this very upsetting, and it makes him hesitant to be open with his diagnosis with those around him. So one of the easiest things that we can do is to stop joking about this disease and stop the Alzheimer's jokes. As Roger would say, we don't joke about other life-limiting illnesses like cancer or ALS, so why do we think it's okay to make these memory jokes or say that I'm having an Alzheimer's moment, or whatever kind of sayings that we have, kind of considered in our culture as being okay. But for a person living with dementia, it's not okay. So that's one of the first things, is do some self-reflection and think about, how am I talking about dementia? And if I've told an Alzheimer's joke, to forgive yourself for doing so, but think about in the future, would you do so again? And so those are some of the easy things that we can do all together that make our community easier for people living with dementia to live well and thrive in their communities. Another thing that often happens that increases the stigma is also, we talked about jokes, but watching the language that we use. So, I said having an Alzheimer's moment, that's one of the sayings we might say, or we might say, oh, I think I'm losing my marbles, or something like that. And again, being careful, because that increases the stigma rather than taking away from it. But also just some of the language that I've been talking about, people living with dementia. So that is our preferred term here at the Alzheimer's Society, because it puts the focus on the person, and the dementia is on top. It's something that they're living with, but it doesn't become who they are. It's not their full identity. And that's what a lot of people living with dementia have experienced, is once they get this diagnosis, that everything they say or do all comes through this lens of the diagnosis, and they feel like their person starts to be lost. So by just changing that language, we are putting the focus back on the person, and that's really what's most important. So we use person living with dementia. We also use the term care partner instead of caregiver, and this is primarily for family members and friends. So we've gotten used to that term, saying I'm a caregiver, but when you say I'm giving care, then suddenly it's that person living with dementia is the care receiver, they're receiving care, there's someone you have to look after, and so on. It changes the whole family dynamic. So when we use terms like care partner, suddenly, instead of I need your help and I need you to give care, suddenly it's we're in this together and we're a partnership, learning how to manage the changes that are coming with this disease. So we use the term care partner as our best practice rather than caregiver. So just little changes like that can make a huge difference. Also, words like, I just recently had a care partner use the term diaper. Well, diaper is what we use when we're talking about infants. It's not a word that we use when we're talking about adults. So just being aware of our language, just in that kind of terms, that we're using adult appropriate language when we're in conversation. Those are some of those simple things that we can do to make a difference and help dispel, I'm having trouble with that word, dispel the stigma that can come with this disease. So I do encourage you again to go ahead and go on to the Alicia's story that's there on our Facebook page. It is a really great story. Again, it's a series of 4 videos focused on Alicia, who's a lady living with dementia, and her family talks about their story. The website ilivewithdementia.ca has lots of different stories, both from people living with dementia and care partners, and that really can help us have more of an understanding and awareness of what it's like to be living with this disease. And then I encourage you to think about the language that you use and everyday conversation, and are there some changes that maybe that you can make to help dispel the stigma, and sharing with other people around you what you've learned about people living with dementia and how best that they can support others in their life. So I will leave you today with this broadcast to think about that. Our next broadcast is on January the 25th, and that broadcast I'm going to be talking about dementia-friendly communities. So talk about the stigma and ways that we can reduce the stigma, but the next step is really looking at how do we become a dementia-friendly community. So how do we pull together both the organizations in our community and the people who live in it to make it an inclusive space where people living with dementia feel included and supported so that they can live a good quality of life when they're living with this disease. So I do hope that you will join me. Again, that's January 25th at noon, and be talking about dementia-friendly communities. Thank you for watching today, and always great to, I see I have a couple people watching here, which is wonderful. It's nice to know that I'm not here alone in my office just talking to my tablet by myself. Please feel free to share this video once it's saved and put on our Facebook page with others, and we can help to spread the word. Okay, have a good day.